Thank you for joining the RTC's Operations Subcommittee meeting. Chair Eric Hawkins, staff is ready for you to begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Chair Eric Hawkins for the record. I'd like to call to order the May 19th, 2020 meeting of the RTC Operations Subcommittee. RTC staff will begin with a roll call of subcommittee members, introduce staff on the line, and touch on a few housekeeping items.
Thank you, Chair Hawkins. David Gloria, Management Analyst for the RTC for the record. I'll be calling your name in alphabetical order. Please confirm your attendance as I read your name. Michelle Castro. Michelle Castro. Okay, we'll come back. Eric Hawkins.
Michelle Castro, sorry.
Thank you, Michelle. Eric Hawkins.
Here.
Jim Keating.
Here.
Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise.
Here.
Thank you. Lieutenant Greg Munson, who is not on the line. Tim Reisman.
Here.
Tim Reis. Thank you. Kaizad Yazdani. Kaizad, are you on the line?
Here.
Thank you. Also, please note that we have several RTC staff on the line for today's meeting. This includes Mr. Joe Damiani, Manager of Engineering, Ms. Gina Kendall, Principal Project Engineer, Ms. Julia Uravich, Senior Project Engineer, Mr. Gong Jie, Senior Project Engineer, and Ms. Eileen Pastor, Government Affairs Supervisor. We'll be reading public comment. We also have Mr. Elon Nair from Nexa with us on the line to present on an item. As the chair mentioned, I have a few housekeeping items to go over. Please state your name for the record before speaking. Voting will be done in alphabetical roll call style after a motion is made for actionable items. Please wait for your name to be read to provide your vote. The chair will call for any comments or questions after an item has been presented. We ask that you use the mute feature on the WebEx and unmute yourself when a vote or comments are called. Staff will be monitoring to assist with muting callers. Thank you, Chair Hawkins.
Thank you. Mr. Damiani?
Thank you, Chair Hawkins and members of the subcommittee. Joe Damiani, Manager of Engineering for the record. The first item on the agenda is to conduct your first citizens participation period. As you know, on March 22nd, 2020, the State of Nevada Executive Department issued Declaration of Emergency Directive 006, which suspended the requirement to have a physical location for public meetings. Pursuant to Directive 006, and for the health and safety of the community, this meeting is being held telephonically. To allow for public participation, the RTC is accepting public comments via email at publiccomments@rtcsnz.com. Comments can be submitted, to be read aloud, or to be added directly to the written record. Ms. Eileen Pastor, Government Affairs Supervisor, will read the public comments received by the RTC.
Okay, thank you. Chair Eric Hawkins for the record. This is the first time set aside for public comment. This time is limited to comments on items included on the agenda. Comments will be limited to the first 500 words, with the remaining words to be included in the written record. Do we have any comments?
Thank you, Chair Hawkins. Eileen Pastor, RTC Government Affairs Supervisor for the record. You do have one public comment for agenda item number 7. Your first comment is from the Southern Nevada Complete Streets Coalition. The Southern Nevada Complete Streets Coalition supports streets designed for all users. We have worked with RTC and Southern Nevada municipal staff and community partners to strengthen the safety and health of our community for all. We are a partner that strives to listen to the community's needs and are committed to supporting the implementation of evidence-based best practice and policy across Southern Nevada. Through thoughtful engagement, we can create policy change that translates to results on our roads. Regarding Agenda Item 7, we ask that you consider approving the revised Uniform Standard Drawings that follow the guidance of both the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, and the proposed accessibility guidelines for pedestrian facilities in the public right-of-way, PROAG. Supporting revisions to drawings that will enhance and improve features for public right-of-way will minimize accessibility challenges for pedestrians, including persons with disabilities. It will also promote a safer and more accessible environment in Southern Nevada. We also ask that you consider adopting the accessibility guidelines for pedestrian facilities in the public right-of-way, PROAG. While revisions of standard drawings reinforce the guidance and requirements of the ADA and PROAG, adopting PROAG will ensure compliancy of the accessibility standards and guidelines. As we work together to improve the design and development of our built environment, we will see increased usage of our safer local roads and more access for the citizens of Southern Nevada. We appreciate the efforts and work the RTC of Southern Nevada and the local municipalities have done to improve our communities. Chair Hawkins, that concludes the public comments received.
Thank you, Eileen. Moving on, Mr. Damiani.
Thank you, Chair Hawkins. Joe Damiani for the record. The next item is to approve the minutes. The minutes are in order and ready for your approval.
Okay, are there any comments or questions from the subcommittee?
Kaizad Yazdani, make a motion for approval of the meeting minutes.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor from Kaizad Yazdani.
Thank you, Chair Hawkins. David Gloria for the record. Just a reminder that I'll be calling your name in alphabetical order. Please call out your vote after I read your name. Michelle Castro.
Yes.
Eric Hawkins.
Aye.
Jim Keene.
Aye.
Tom Cruise.
Aye.
Tim Reisman.
Aye.
Kaizad Yazdani.
Aye.
Thank you, Chair. We have six ayes and no nays.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Damiani?
Thank you, Chair Hawkins. Joe Damiani for the record. We will be taking the next item out of order to accommodate the next presenter. The next item is item number 5, is receive a presentation from Nexar regarding intelligent transportation systems, work zone, and roadway inventory detection platforms. Mr. Elon Nair from Nexar is here to provide a demonstration of its updated CityStream and live map platforms. Mr. Nair?
Thank you. Elon Nair for the record. Thank you for having me here today. I'm going to give a very brief high-level overview of the Nexar CityStream platform, some of the features that RTC and the partner agencies are using today. We'll go through each one of the solutions, very high-level overview, with a quick video demo afterwards, and try to leave some time for questions if there are. Okay, David, you can go to the next slide. Excellent. In terms of what we're going to do today, we're going to start with a high-level overview. That's going to be a video on the next slide, and then we're going to go to specifically the construction feature for road work zone updates, look into inventory and virtual camera, and we'll go through each one of those specifically following this video that we're going to see right now. Go ahead, David. Thank you.
Keeping the roads safe and clear can be a daunting task for states, cities, and transit authorities. A blocked lane due to unscheduled construction, a pothole in the road, a missing street sign. These can lead to congestion, vehicle damage, and even life-threatening conditions. Today,
ultimately, what we do at Nexar is, David, do you have sound, or do you want me to provide commentary?
We're fixing it. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Oh, you still got it.
keeping the roads safe and clear can be a daunting task for states, cities, and transit authorities. A blocked lane due to unscheduled construction, a pothole in the road, a missing street sign. These can lead to congestion, vehicle damage, and even life-threatening conditions. Today, agencies rely on inspectors and surveyors to enforce policies and maintain road inventory. However, on a state or city scale, this can be costly and very challenging. The solution? Believe it or not, it's already driving around in your city. Meet Nexar CityStream, a revolutionary city monitoring system that is based on data from Nexar's safe driving vision-powered network. The network is crowdsourced from users using Nexar's top-selling dash cams. Anonymous frames are constantly analyzed in real time using advanced AI to detect and monitor various elements and situations on the road. Drivers using Nexar are alerted to hazards on the road ahead in real time, while state and city planners can access anonymized data from millions of miles of road every day. Cities and states can use Nexar CityStream to monitor construction zones. This enables easy enforcement of work zone schedules and lane closures. Road inventory detection helps city operators monitor and manage road assets. Dangerous road conditions alerts use sensor data to expose high-risk streets and intersections. With Nexar CityStream, cities can now see every corner of their city and ensure the city's roads are safe and clear. Find out how Nexar CityStream can help your city become safer and more efficient.
Thank you, David. So if we start off specifically with the work zones and understand what we're doing, the team on RTC that we have on the call here and the participating agencies, you guys have a leadership in the US in terms of the type of data, fresh visual data that you're extracting from this network and the maps that it's creating to specifically identify construction zones. Not any type of construction zone, but specifically with filters on top of it to specifically look for lane closures. And this is something that we continue to work on both with RTC and the partner agencies to help optimize managing of permits, what's actually going on the road, make sure there are no violations, etc. There's no other metro area in the country today that has this type of a network. We've reached well over 3 million miles, close to 4 million miles. We're actually below that now due to COVID, but we're starting to see it start to rebound as well as things slowly start to open up and people return from shelter in place. On top of that, we're during this period right now, we're going to experiment as well. In addition to our network, which are general drivers, general commuters, also professional drivers like Uber and Lyft using Nexar, we're also going to install them on some buses as well to make sure you capture that data specifically from buses in the fast fleet from RTC. Next slide, David, please. In terms of where the product stands today, we have released a whole bunch of new releases very recently where we take all of the raw detections of where we actually see using machine vision, where we see construction elements, and using deep learning models, we're able to aggregate them together. So instead of showing numerous locations of a construction cone and a barrel that aren't connected at all, we can start to comprehend using MUTCD compliance to make sure that they're set up safely. And the goal here is to make sure that we're demonstrating exactly what you see on the ground, and everything that we tell you in the map, you can click and we will have fresh visual imagery to support why we're telling you something exists. Something that we're working on right now is taking this data on a daily level and adding change detections to show what is there today that was not there yesterday, or what is missing today, what's missing and what's new, based on comparing that to the previous day, to really take those insights to the next level as well. And that's something that we're actively working on right now. And David, in the next slide, the next video, you'll just see very briefly, here's an example of what it looks like today. What you can see in this video is on the top left, you have your filters. So you can select a specific day from a calendar. Within a day, you can go backwards and forwards, or select a time of day, or customize that, or use the specific time periods that are set up there already. You select any specific construction zone that you want, and it will tell you all of the elements and detections. So from this construction zone, we have, for example, numerous pictures of a barricade or diamond sign, and here you can see it shows you exactly the grabber cone that we've seen with the machine vision around it, and on top you could see exactly where the car is. So that circle on top shows you a picture of the car as well as the heading. For anyone in RTC that wants access, you can make sure that you can see this yourselves or with some of the participants in the pilot, and I'm sure would be happy to demonstrate this as well. And that's the construction zone filter. If we move on to the next feature in CityStream, it's for roadway inventory. Now, the goal of the pilot initially was just to have a proof of concept, because this was farther down on the roadmap, and started off with something called a shape file, which is a technical file that shows the GPS coordinates of where the information is. During the pilot period, we actually were able to release an initial version that shows all of the detections that we see with signage, starting off with some of the critical signs. And again, like all of our features in CityStream, using fresh visual data, if we tell you there's a specific sign that's there, then we will provide the imagery to support it. On top of this, what this will provide the infrastructure for is change detection with this as well. So instead of a static map of your inventory, we will start being able to detect changes and let you know proactively potentially that a sign is missing, potentially a stop sign, which can allow you to prevent a crash from happening in the first place, instead of finding out about it retroactively. And David, if we go to the next slide, this is just a quick demo of this feature as well. So what you can see over here is zeroing into an area. This is Henderson. You're going to select specific signs that you want to see in this area, and the map will update and show you the signs that we've detected in this specific area. You select those signs and it will pull up one of the pictures that we have, because there's no need to see hundreds of pictures, showing the exact detection that we tell you is there with the imagery. Thank you, David. And if we go on to the next feature and finish with this, this is called virtual camera. The first two features are powered by detections. So we will detect either a sign or we'll detect a construction element. This feature for virtual camera is based on just locations of interest with visual imagery without detections. So what we're able to do is retrieve those locations of interest. We've actually done this and have over 50 locations from RTC, Henderson, Las Vegas, and the barricade inspector that we're working with, where they can say, I'm interested in seeing a specific location for whatever that reason is. We will tag it. It does not have to be a specific lat-long coordinate, but it could be a complex polygon. In CityStream, you get a dashboard where you can see it on a map and click on each location, and it will provide the images, not only the latest image, but you can look historically. Or the second image that's hidden here, you can see it also gives you almost like a CCTV display. So you can see the live images coming in from all of the locations of interest, and you could select a specific one. And we can end in one more video here just to demonstrate how that feature works. So what you could see in this specific one, which I wanted to show, is it's not a specific dot, but it was a complex polygon. So here you can see your dashboard. On the left is your list of locations of interest, so you could click on one like that, or you could see a map view. And you can see when you zoom in, this is an entire segment of a roadway, and here you have hundreds of images from that location. So you can scroll back in time. If something happened, let's say the weekend, and you weren't available, or you just want to look what's going on, this fresh visual imagery coming in daily, numerous pictures per day, not something that's static of a year, 2 years old. So it really provides insight to what's going on. We know how dynamic roadways are, and this is a really great, powerful feature for that. Thank you very much, David. I don't know if you want to have any questions. I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, really appreciate the time, and thank you again. And here's my contact information if anyone has any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the subcommittee?
Mr. Chairman, this is JP, John Pena Wallace, with the RTC for the record. Could I make a comment or two?
Of course.
Thank you for that, and thank you, Elon, for getting everybody an overview of what we've been working on. Just for some of the committee members, subcommittee members that might not be familiar with this, we started with Nexar. We wrote our first contract back in December of 2018, and the first goal was really a proof of concept to see if their artificial intelligence and deep learning models and all that wizardry could actually find temporary traffic control devices out there. They proved pretty quickly that they could. They were really good at finding cones. As a matter of fact, they were finding them in parking lots and under cars and in lanes and all over the place. So that was great. That gave us hope. In March of 19, a couple months later, a handful of months later, the next amendment was to figure out if we could take those raw cone detections and make them more actionable. Elon said it, filter and aggregate the data in such a way that we were getting more of a picture of those traffic control devices, cones, that were causing real problems, where the lane closures were, and not just individual cone detections. And they made great progress on that as well. Then we wrote our second amendment in October of 19, and that's where we expanded the test deck from, I'm going off of memory, not quite 3 square miles in downtown Las Vegas to maybe 5 or 6 square miles, something like that. Almost doubled the area that we were testing the system in downtown Las Vegas, and we also added that section down near Green Valley Ranch in Henderson. In Henderson, we had been working with the cities of Las Vegas and the cities of their traffic engineering staff, their barricade inspectors, really mostly focused on work zones. But Henderson wanted to see if they could find roadway inventory, really more specifically change management. Could they find stop signs that were there one day and gone the next? Things like that. So the third, I guess it's the second amendment, included that piece of Henderson down, like I said, in Green Valley Ranch. So those were, that's kind of the history of the project. It's been going on a while. They've made great progress. This virtual camera concept is something that they came to us with and saying, hey, in our travels with you guys, we've discovered this particular thing, and maybe it would be useful for you to set up a virtual camera somewhere. And every time a car goes through that polygon that Elon showed you, it would essentially send a picture up to the cloud, and we would have access to it. That's a gross simplification, but that's the concept. And the thing that immediately came to our mind was bus stops. Could we tag bus stops and just keep a tab or keep an eye on them throughout the day as vehicles that are on Nexar's network? That's important to understand. These are not city-owned or RTC-owned vehicles or cameras. These are cameras that are on privately owned vehicles that are out there that have entered into an agreement with Nexar, and we can get anonymized information from them. So that has great possibilities. It also has very interesting, we think, applications near traffic signals, work zones near traffic signals, other things that are of interest that are going on near traffic signals. So there are a lot of unbelievably cool uses for this technology. The final amendment we entered into was in late March here, and it was a time extension to get us through to the end of June, to give us some time. The legal beagles are working out the licensing agreement and working out some of the thornier issues associated with who owns the data, who has access to the data, so we can get these all-in-one cameras that Elon mentioned on some of our fixed route buses and some of our paratransit buses. As Elon also mentioned, you know, the number of miles that are driven on their network has decreased because of COVID, and you know, people are not driving as much as they were, particularly the professional drivers. So we thought that if we could get these cameras on vehicles that we control on the streets that we care mostly about, you know, the arterials, obviously the agencies care about more than just the arterials, they care about their residential streets as well, then maybe we could find a way to build the network out, because that's really what it depends on, build the network out in such a way that we weren't completely reliant on, you know, the private market for getting the cameras out there. So that's just a super brief overview of, well, maybe it wasn't super brief, but an overview nevertheless of our relationship with Nexar, and we are considering the next steps. So I'd love to get in touch with you, get Joe's team in touch with your traffic folks, and talk about potential next steps, and get the two agencies that really have not been involved to date, Clark County and North Las Vegas, in touch with Las Vegas and Henderson, talk amongst yourselves, and come to understand some of the things that we think, some of the problems that this can help us solve. So thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. That's all I had.
All right, thanks, JP. Are there any other comments or questions from the subcommittee? Okay, I'm not hearing any, so we can move on to the next item. Mr. Damiani.
Thank you, Chair Hawkins. Again, Joe Damiani for the record. The next item is number 3, to discuss a regional GIS data scheme for transportation infrastructure. As you know, this item has been before you at previous meetings. City of Las Vegas currently has a project that is looking into providing this data and this information for the entire city. And we are coordinating with the city on this project, and as it will become the basis of any potential valley-wide system for this particular information. With that, I would suggest that we receive an update from the City of Las Vegas on their project and or any additional information that the FAST group would like to add.
All right, thank you, Joe. Are there any comments or questions from the subcommittee?
Guys, this is Donnie, Clark County. I'd like to see what information the city is planning to gather. So at least if we wanted to add some, this would be the time.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is Joe Damiani. Is there a representative from City of Las Vegas that could give us I know at the last time this project was in the process of being scoped. If we can get a status on where this project's.
Okay, I'm guessing that would come from Tom. If there are any comments from City of Las Vegas.
Yeah, can you hear me? I think I've been muted or something.
Oh, yeah.
We got you now, Tom.
Okay, hey, yeah, I'm not aware of a project. So I know there were discussions in the past, but I'm not aware of anything that panned out. So I can't give you much of an update. I'd have to go find out myself.
Mr. Chair, if I could, Joe Damiani. Yeah, if you could, I think it would be, there was a UPWP planning grant that the city received to provide this information on the city. So if it's possible at our next meeting, if you could bring back where that project stands and what it is that you guys are looking to collect, I think that would be very helpful for the group. And then we can start working towards potentially getting a valley-wide system in place.
Yeah, this is Tom. Okay, you know, I'll look into it and give an update next time.
Okay. This is Chair Eric Hawkins. So if are there any other comments or questions from the subcommittee? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to the next item. Mr. Damiani.
Thank you, Chair Hawkins. Joe Damiani. The next item on your agenda is item number 4, to receive a presentation regarding the traffic signal performance metric system. Mr. GaN Xiao, Senior Project Engineer, will provide an update.
Thank you, Joe. GaN Xiao for the record. Thank you, everyone. My name is GaN Xiao, Senior Project Engineer at RTC FAST. Today, my presentation is Advanced Features of Automated Traffic Signal Performance Measure System. We think this system is extremely helpful for each agency's traffic signal maintenance and operations. Next slide, David. Today, I'm going to give you a little bit history and background of why we choose AT-SPM. I'm also going to introduce the system architecture and some advanced features and applications. Last, I'm going to show you some enhancements I have added to the AT-SPM and my future plan. Next slide, David. This is the homepage of the FAST SPM website. It is open to the public, no login needed. You can access to this website from anywhere, from any device. Next slide. So why we need an AT-SPM? First, as many of you know, FAST has the freeway performance measurement system, FAST dashboard. And we also need a Accuro and a signal dashboard, but we are short of data in the past. Now, with the AT-SPM, we can collect huge amount of data from the signal controller and analyze the data, which makes our signal smarter. The AT-SPM is free and open source. It is developed by Utah DOT, and it happens to use the same development technology I used for the FAST dashboard. So I implement this system without too much hurdle. And last, the AT-SPM is promoted by the FHWA nationwide. FAST is one of the first agencies to use this system, and now we are the 3rd largest system in the country. Over 1,000 signals are incorporated into this system already. Eventually, all the signals in the valley will be added to this system. Next slide. The SPM system architecture is actually pretty simple. The traffic controller logs every event in the controller and the detection events, and then send this data to the SPM database through the FAST network. Then the server analyzes the data and send email alert every morning or respond to the web browser request. Next slide. The key features of SPM I'm going to introduce today are the Watchdog daily email alert, split monitor, and lane-by-lane traffic count. Next slide. This screenshot shows you an email alert that sends out every morning. So the watchdog analyzes the signal phase termination reasons and send email to FAST and agency staff to notify them which signal might have detection problem. The rule is fairly simple. So during the night, the traffic is not heavy. So most of the time, the phases should just gap out. But if we see too many max out from a signal, this signal is included in this email list. For example, the highlighted part shows Buffalo and Smoke Ranch eastbound might have some problem. Next slide. So what I do is go to the home page and zoom the map to this signal, choose a split monitor, and click Create Matrix button. Next slide. It will show me the split monitor plot. The red and blues are max out and force off. Green means gap out. So you can see from 3:30 in the morning, the eastbound start maxing out all the time, caused by bad detection. So after a couple days, city technicians fix the detection. You can see most of the time the eastbound is just gap out, and the unused time is given back to the main street. You can clearly see the difference from those two plots. One is bad, one is good. So the SPM Watchdog is a very useful tool for agency to find bad detections and fix it. It will make your signal detection maintenance proactive instead of reactive. Recently, I added a filter to the Watchdog email list. It will automatically filter out all the signals on max recall. This will make the list much shorter, and it will also bring you attention that which signals are on max recall. Next slide. This is a lane-by-lane traffic count plot. So almost every traffic engineer counted cars at the intersection. It is very time-consuming and labor-intensive. Now with the SPM and proper detection zone setup, all this can be done automatically 24/7, real-time and historical. This plot gives you each individual lane count, as well as the total volume of the decator northbound through movement. Next slide. Recently, I added data download function. So you can download the data to Excel file. It has 3 levels of aggregation. Detail is a lane by lane. Summary is the total of each movement. Overview is the total by each approach. That is by eastbound, westbound, northbound, and southbound. Next slide. So like I said, the data are coming from these detection zones. So to be able to get a turning movement count, all you need to do is just set up these zones. For video detection, it's fairly easy. You just need to add these virtual zones in the configuration. No additional cost, no additional hardware. Next slide. Now comes to the fun part. The enhancements I have added to the ATSPM. Smartphone app, travel time runs, Timespace Diagram, Timespace trajectories, and also automated before and after study. Next slide. This is a screenshot of smartphone app I developed for the travel time runs. It has both iOS version and Android version. Using it is pretty simple. Before you start driving, just click the start button, then you just drive around. When you finish your driving, just click the stop and then send. Your GPS locations will be sent to the SPM server, and your route will be automatically calculated and returned back to you in a few seconds. Next slide. So far, we have accumulated over 2 million trips. And these are from the smartphone apps, from RTC fleet vehicles, and some green driver trips, and also Las Vegas Boys and Girls Club fleet vehicles. And all these trips can be queried by this trip list page. Next slide. So when you click on the hyperlink of each run, it will show you the time-space diagram. You can see where you stop, how long you stop, if the queue is too long or you just bump into the red light. This plot shows our signal timing technician drive up and down the corridor a couple times. Next slide. When you click on the trajectory button, it will find similar runs and overlay them together. Then you can see the pattern and the trend. You can see if we stop at the designed gathering intersection or just randomly. You can easily identify the problem if there's any. Next slide. If you choose show before and after result, it will give you the comparison right after the plot. It gives you the summary table and a radar plot, so you can easily see the difference. This plot shows the great work that fast signal technicians Keith and Lewis have done on the West Flamingo inbound traffic during the AM peak. You can see they eliminate all the stops between Hualapai and Fort Apache and achieve huge improvement of the travel time and speeds accordingly. Next slide. So can we use this to address citizen complaints? Yes, we can. Anyone can download this app and run it like any fitness app or bicycling app. Citizens can report their rides, and then we can look into it and address their complaints. Even the watchdog can find the problem before the citizen complain. Again, this will make our signal operations more proactive. Instead of acting like firefighters, putting up the fire when citizen complains, we can be more proactive. Next slide. In summary, the ATSPM makes the signal smarter. It can easily identify the detection problem or timing issue. It collects huge amount of data 24/7. The smartphone app can make every car as a probe vehicle to help our signal timing. Also, the before and after study can be done automatically. Next slide. Our future enhancements are upgrading the ATSPM to the newer version, also adding more AI to the watchdog to make it smarter. We'll take any suggestions and feedbacks from you and then add more meaningful measures and plots. Next slide. I think that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions you have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gong. Are there any comments or questions from the subcommittee?
I had a comment, if I could, Mr. Chairman. Again, John Pena Wallace for the record.
Of course.
First of all, thanks, Gong. Amazing work. This has been recognized with regional and national awards. This is work that is really world class. And one of the things Brian Hoft and I wanted to do was to, and Gong has come and talked to this subcommittee before, but it was a while ago, and he kind of gave an overview of what was going on. Since then, he's made a lot of enhancements. He's added a lot of things. The real goal, well, there are several goals, but the one that's most in tune with this subcommittee is helping you identify and fix those issues that are out there knowing that you are all very resource starved. You don't have the resources, the capability to do really much more than you're doing now, which is keeping things running and running pretty well. But obviously, there's plenty of room for improvement. With Gong's tools, we want to make these things useful, and not just dumping your inbox with 1,000 emails on potential problems. We know that's not a practical tool for you to zero in on where the problems are and fix them. So after this overview that Gong has given, we would love very much to have one-on-one meetings with your signal techs, with your traffic engineers, and to really dig deep into what he can provide you. He is a genius when it comes to parsing this data in different ways and presenting it in different ways. He's done phenomenal work with the freeway dashboard. As you know, you've probably seen that. That's really more for public consumption, maybe. We really want to get down at the technician level and enhance the work that FAST can do, enhance the work that the agency's signal techs can do, and the relationship between those two groups of people. So in the coming weeks here, I'm going to be calling you, maybe Brian as well, and to try to set up some of those meetings, and let you know what we've got. You could let us know what you need, and then we can come to some agreement on how to link those two things up. So that's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that.
All right. Thanks, JP. Are there any other comments or questions from the subcommittee? Okay. Well, I have maybe more to the lower level question. Although backing up to what JP said, I'm more than willing to meet with you. I'd actually rather have traffic engineering staff along with traffic maintenance staff all meet together so we can all kind of brainstorm together to see what we might need.
Exactly. I agreed completely. Again, John Pena Wallace for the record. That's exactly the kind of scenario we were thinking. We want as many people in the room as possible.
Okay. One question for Gong, or probably for Gong, but if not, then for somebody else, is have you taken a look at how accurate the turning movement counts are? Like once you set up or have you done that? Like once you set up the cameras in the right detection zones and all that, how accurate are those turning movement counts?
These counts are pretty accurate as long as the detection zones are working properly. So when I set up this, after I set up this system, I did a manual count and comparison. I record the video from the detection camera. I have another camera, which is from the intersection camera. So two cameras, and also the counts from the SPM. So I compare these three, and the results are pretty accurate. But as the same thing as other video detection system, there might be a little bit undercount because of maybe there are some big trucks block the camera view, that kind of thing. So, but overall, it's pretty accurate. I think that's very normal for video detection. The video detection count is normally 95% of the actual count. That's pretty normal industry standard. And also this turning movement counts from SPM is identical to the traffic volume from the ATMS, the Signal Central Management Software, because they are all coming from the detection zones. So the data source are the same. I hope I answered your question, Eric.
Yeah, you did. Thanks, Don. Eric Hawkins again for the record. One kind of follow-up, I guess, and then I'll be done with my questions, I think, is when you don't have a right turn lane, can you get those right turn movements counted?
As long as you set up a right turn detection zone, you can separate from the right turn and through, the shared lanes. It depends how you set up the zones.
Okay. Again, Eric Hawkins for the record. Thanks, Gon. Are there any other comments or questions from the subcommittee? Okay, seeing no more, we can move on to the next item. Mr. Damiani?
Thank you, Chair Hawkins. Joe Damiani for the record. Our next item is number 6, to discuss and resolve various transit system and traffic engineering operation and/or law enforcement issues.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Damiani. Were we still moving this to the end, or is this?
No, we could go ahead. It's
okay. Then, is there anything that a member of the subcommittee would like to share? Okay, seeing and hearing no questions or comments, we can move on to the next item. Mr. Damiani?
Thank you, Chair Hawkins. Joe Damiani. Our next item is item number 7, to approve revisions to the uniform standard drawings with respect to current accessibility best practices within the right-of-way. This, as you know, is the next round of recommended revisions to the standard drawings. We have been going through the standard drawings in batches, and this is the next list of drawings. There should be, I believe there'll probably be one more batch that we'll be going through at our next ops meeting. But for these, I will go through and read each drawing, summarize the proposed change, and open it up for any questions or comments on the specific drawing itself. And then we'll move on to the next drawing. So with that, we'll start with drawing 244.9.S1, bicycle lane delineation, legend, and signage. For this particular drawing, we are recommending adding note number 10, which would refer the reader to drawing number 249 for the information regarding the placement of any signs. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that particular drawing? All right, we'll move on to drawing number 249, standard street name sign post installation. We are recommending adding note number 7 to provide specific instructions when a sign is installed in a sidewalk. And I'll follow up again at the end for any questions or comments. And if you have anything, just chime in as I go through. So let's go on to the next drawing. Drawing 249.1, sign installation detail. We are recommending adding note 10, again, to provide specific instructions when a sign is installed in the sidewalk. Pretty straightforward changes. We'll move on to drawing 255. Oh, go ahead, guys.
This is Donnie, Clark County, for the record. So I'm looking at both these drawings, 249 and 249.1. Is there a reason why we can't combine them into one drawing?
That is it. I'm looking. 249. I think I guess we could, except one's a street sign and one's just a generic sign. So
Yep.
we'd have to verify if there's anything. The difference is that some of the dimensions are a little bit off for a street sign compared to a regular sign.
I think the detail, guys out there, is down in Clark County. I think the detail here is more towards the installation below ground than it is for the sign itself. It's more about the signpost and what goes below ground than the sign itself.
Yeah, we'd have to look at the differences.
I think my concern is because if I look at these two drawings the way they are, there are a lot of inconsistencies between these two drawings, even though they should be consistent, because you have call out for top of sidewalk, and it should say or 24 by 24 by 4 inches pad, because that's what's called out on 249.1, but it's not called out on 249. So you're looking for a lot of revisions in these two drawings if you wanted to keep them separate, because they're inconsistent on the callouts.
Yeah, if I could recommend that we could either leave them as they exist today, or and just make these revisions for the PROAG, and then come back, because we are planning on doing a wholesale review of the entire standard drawings, and that would probably be the appropriate time to combine the two at that point. I don't want to say that we can make it. We could look at it between now and the specifications committee, and if we find that it's simple to do, we could go ahead and do that, if that would be your recommendation.
Guys, ideas down in Clark County, I firmly feel we should be addressing these drawings one time, whether it be for PROAG or technical insufficiencies or errors. We should correct this one time and move forward, because they're getting used by developers and projects, and we're having to make our own details to correct the deficiencies in these drawings. So while we're visiting this for, ADA requirements, I think we should correct it for other issues that we can see that needs to be revised at this time. It's minor stuff.
Joe Damiani, for the record, Kazad, I don't disagree. However, if we at the RTC don't get any of the proposed changes that you guys are needing to have to deal with, then we don't know to make them. So I have no issue. I really, I want to go through every one of these drawings, and I wish we could fix them all. But I have to know what it is you guys are dealing with in order to propose the revisions properly.
Guys, okay, go ahead.
No, so with that said, let's go ahead and keep this change moving in this fashion. We at staff will look at these two and see if we can combine them before we go to the spec committee and or the EAC meeting. I don't have an issue committing to that, but I don't want to hold it at this point to get these PROAG revisions done. And we'll try to do our best to make, we'll come up with what our envision is, but if anybody has any proposed revisions that they would like, we could certainly make those between now and the specifications committee.
Guys, ideas down in Clark County, I'd like to hold these drawings, Joe, because there are inconsistencies even for the PROAG. For instance, in drawing 249, it calls out for a 48-inch clearance. That can only be met for new construction, will not work for old communities.
Yeah, but Kaizad, Joe Damiani for the record, this has been the consistent struggle that we have with these drawings. These drawings are intended for new construction. if somebody's coming in with an existing project and dealing with it, the standards don't apply. And, you know, there has to be some engineering being done when things exist in the current scenario. It's not a cookie cutter. It's intended to be able to make the best scenario for when you build something new, right? If it's not per this, you know, that's the one issue I have with all these standards. We're trying to make a standard for every case, and that's not what standard drawings are intended to be. We have to get away from ignoring the fact that the engineering community has to do some engineering at times. And I understand how we got to where we are, and I understand what the Blue Book is used for by the agencies, but that is not its intended purpose. And we have to eventually get to the point where the standards are standards for new construction. When we build roads, these are the standards you stick with. If the standards don't comply, then by all means, everybody should be asking the engineers to provide an engineered solution that meets the intent of what the requirements are. And I don't know how else to really reply to that, except, you know, we can't have a scenario. That's why we have so many drawings right now, because we're trying to accommodate every scenario that can pop up.
Guys, this is Donnie, Clark County. If that's the intent, then Note 7 should clearly state for new construction. We've been through this before, Joe. We're not trying to engineer this for every scenario, but you're creating standard drawings that get used by developers on their plans, and this is going to raise more questions than provide answers. So if this is for new development, it should state that for new construction.
Okay, we're okay with just adding new construction to that note and move forward?
I'd still recommend holding these drawings for the rest of the issues we need to address. And I can send you all my red lines today.
Mr. Chairman, John Pena Wallace, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. This is, I think, the third batch of these drawings that have come forward through the system to address the ADA issues associated with each of the drawings. And the agenda item is structured such that this is really the only thing that's under consideration, is the applicability of these drawings to the current best practice associated with building offsites inside of public rights of way. So I agree with you, Joe and Kaizad. Number one, these are intended for new construction. Number two, a note on the drawing saying that they're intended for new construction would not be a bad thing. There are multiple issues with multiple drawings, Kaizad. You are absolutely right. But we have attempted before to do them all at once, and frankly, it goes nowhere. We have got, because everybody gets in a ball, twisted around the axles on what's right in their agency, what's not right in their agency, how new construction relates to developer projects, et cetera, et cetera. So it was decided over a year ago in this committee and others that we were going to break it into pieces to tackle the most urgent thing first, which is building roadways to the greatest extent possible that meet the best practices for accessibility, knowing full well that there are other issues that have to be tackled, and they will be tackled. But we've tried it before doing it all at once, and we make very little headway. So I would implore the subcommittee to approve these drawings for the ADA changes, as you've done at least 2 batches before. Joe has said, and it can be done if you want to make the issue more broad and fix other inconsistencies, then that could be done somewhere between here and SPEC and EAC and the board. But we do not want to stop this in midstream, particularly since we have a precedent, and that precedent has frankly been working pretty well. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, Kaizadi is Johnny, Clark County. So if we've gone forward and had 2 batches of these drawings approved for ADA, when are we going to visit those drawings to update those for other deficiencies or revisions that we'd like to do? Because it's been over 6 months since the first batch got approved, and we haven't visited those drawings. And that's my concern as I'm looking at these drawings. Once we approve these, when will we come back to these to revise it for other things that we need to?
Mr. Chair, Joe Damiani, RTC. The plan, Kaizad, is to basically get through these PROAGs. We wanted to get these through a little bit quicker. It's taken us a little bit longer. However, once we're through with these, we solely intend to establish a working group amongst the agencies and go through the entire books and clean them up like they should be, because they're well overdue. So, I mean, I understand, and I can make any of the changes that you propose, but like I said, I would rather not hold them. I'd rather make the changes between now, SPEC, and EAC, and keep these moving forward so I can get to the overall drawings. Because the drawing, we've only touched a handful of drawings on the PROAG issue, and there are a lot of drawings that need to be fixed. And this is just the tip of them. So it would be a lot cleaner if we did a whole revision at one time with every drawing. And therefore, we don't have to address the accessibility issues, but we will address technical and or requirements of drawings. I mean, that's what I would recommend. I would recommend that you provide us the changes to any potential drawing out of these groups that you would like us to change, and we could bring that along with these proposed revisions to the SPEC committee, and we can go from there and see how. I mean, that to me seems acceptable, but I don't want to hold. I would prefer not to hold them because it's going to delay us getting to the overall end objective, which is to finish up the PROAG issues and get on to the complete drawing and or specification revisions.
You know, Kaizadi is Donnie, Clark County, for the record. I'm just trying to understand, if you're trying to achieve the best practices to meet PROAG, that can be done by, and I think we do it here at Clark County, without these drawings calling out for these revisions. We're doing it today. If we can get the 48-inch clearance, we're doing it, even though it's not shown on these drawings, Joe. So that's where I'm looking at this, is more than that ADA guideline, it's the technical guideline that's becoming an issue for us, at least at Clark County, because I'm having to draw up special details to revise the drawings as they stand today.
But so Mr. Chairman, Joe Damiani, RTC, that brings up my point, is that we just monitor these drawings. If you guys have revisions, we can't make any changes unless we have notification that these drawings want to be revised. That's the whole intent of the standard drawing and the spec committee. If you're making changes to standard drawings on a regular basis, then that is the time to bring it to the spec committee and see if all the agencies are okay and we can make a change to the standard drawing. That's what the whole purpose of all of this is about. It's not intended for you to have to make individual designs every time you do a project. Right? If the standards are wrong, they need to be addressed. But like you said, I don't know anything about these things because we're not the ones installing them. You guys are the ones installing them. So we're just trying to get these things through in a logical fashion. We were doing the accessibility options first, and then we're going to go into the technical issues. If you have I think we said it in the other batches, if you have technical issues that you know of at the time, and you can get them to us, we will incorporate them, but we have to know about them. So are you talking about are you just talking about these two, 249 and 249.1, or do you have it with any of the others as well?
Guys, that is Donnie, Clark County, for the record. It's really for all the other drawings too, Joe. I thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time. We can move forward and just adopt it for ADA, and I'll send you all my red lines and we can look at revising the drawings for the technical details in the next meeting or thereafter.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I may, Joe Damiani, I guess if that's the case and you have more than one, then actually I would since we do have one more batch, you know, let's try to get these done. If I can, I would recommend that we hold all these items and move them on to the next ops with any of the recommended changes that we can add with the next batch. It'll make the next meeting long, but I think if that would be what would the subcommittee feel about that recommendation?
Guys, that is Donnie, Clark County. I like that.
This is Eric Hawkins, for the record, City of Henderson. I guess I'm kind of like JP. Like, I agree with everybody. But where did this go before? I mean, like you said, JP, we were talking about changes. You know, not just ADA or PROAG changes, but all changes that would be applicable. So I guess this could go, maybe it's just a warning, I guess it could go multiple meetings. It's already happened before.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, John Pena Wallace again. That's exactly right. I mean, if the subcommittee feels that it's best to hold them, then, you know, obviously that's what we'll do. The difficulty is, I don't know, it's a saying nowadays, I've heard it a few times. You don't want to sacrifice the good for the perfect. There is a tremendous lift looking at all of the drawings and ironing out all of these details. And it's not just technical issues. There are philosophical issues associated with that. There are different policies that the agencies have adopted that are inconsistent amongst one another. We did not want to sacrifice the very good goal of getting these things as close as we could to PROAG standards if we could, leaving room for ADA standards if the agency feels that that's the most appropriate way to go. And I agree with you, Kaizad, and I appreciate what you guys are doing. You are meeting PROAG wherever it's possible. But we need to have, and you've pointed it out, these drawings are used by private development, so these drawings should reflect what we really are doing. Agreed completely. But it is not an easy task, and in the 20 years almost now that I've been coming to this committee, it's been attempted on numerous occasions, and it sometimes there have been good successes, and other times it's just languished. So the goal was to break it into manageable pieces and knock it out one step at a time. But if the right path is to hold it so people have a higher comfort level with where we're going, that's fine. But it will delay the process of getting to the real meat and potatoes, which is fixing the drawings and getting the agencies on the same page to the greatest extent possible, particularly when it comes to the the capital projects, and delimit and even potentially changes to the policies and procedures that clarify the role of the Blue Book relative to the individual development codes that the agencies have adopted, which is where typically the Blue Book is referenced as a guide to private development. So it's a big task, and I don't want to sacrifice the good to the perfect.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Joe Damiani, RTC. JP, I agree 100% with what you just said. And like everybody, you know, everybody's making valid points, and they're all agreeable. With that, we do have our final batch coming at the next ops meeting. I will propose to hold these items, include any changes anybody wants to make to these particular drawings here, include them with the last batch, as well as we'll send you the list of the last batch, and if you have any changes to those as well. However, I will concede that at the next ops meeting, if there are technical issues that come up at the meetings, those I will propose we hold so that we can finish the ADA and the PROAG section, and then we can move on to the technical issues of all the drawings at that point. So I don't have an issue with this, since we do have one more batch of PROAG drawings to come before we start the overall drawings and specification revisions.
Azadi is done in Clark County for the record. Joe, can you provide an explanation why we're removing some of these drawings? Specifically, I like the drawing number 887, providing minimum, offset distances when you have poles and fork chops. There's no reference here to ADAG or PROAG. So why are we removing these drawings if, I don't need an explanation now, but when you send the next batch of drawings for review, if you can also advise or refresh my memory why we're removing some of these drawings?
Yes, that will come with the next batch, and we will get those out as soon as we possibly can, so that it will give time for revisions for any potential changes that the agencies want to make. And Mr. Chairman, if I may, then staff would recommend that we hold item number 7 until the next operations subcommittee address the issues brought up today and bring them back with some additional drawings at the next ops meeting.
Okay, Eric Hawkins for the record. Is that going to require a motion to do that?
Yes, I believe so.
Guys, Adias Darnay, Clark County Public Works, for the record. Make a motion to follow staff's recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor from Kaizad Yazdani.
Thank you, Chair Hawkins. David Gloria for the record. Just a reminder that I'll be calling your name in alphabetical order. Please call out your vote after I read your name. Michelle Castro. Michelle Castro.
Aye.
Eric Hawkins.
Aye.
Jim Keane.
Aye.
Tom Cruise.
Aye.
Tim Reisman.
Aye.
Kaizad Yazdani.
Aye.
Thank you, Chair. You have 6 ayes and no nays.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Damiani.
Thank you, Chair Hawkins. Joe Damiani, RTC. Your next item is item number 8, to receive a report on the current status of the revisions to the uniform standard specs and drawings. This is a standard item to provide you with an update on where revisions to the standard drawings and/or specifications are in the current system. There is no action necessary for this item. It's for your informational purposes, and I would be happy to answer any questions if anybody has one.
Okay, Eric Hawkins for the record. Are there any comments or questions from the subcommittee? Okay, if there are no questions or comments, we can move on to the next item. Mr. Damiani.
Thank you, Chair Hawkins. Joe Damiani, RTC. Your next item is item number 9, to discuss topics of interest. This is the opportunity for subcommittee members to share updates and information with other members. At this time, RTC staff, we would like to bring up one topic regarding our transit notes. We want to emphasize and request that you as the traffic engineers strictly enforce these 2 particular notes and make sure that they on your approved traffic control approvals as conditions. I'm going to read them into the record. They'll also be included in the minutes, and we can always email them out as we do on typical comments to projects. But these are pretty important to us because they've been helping with the bus stop issues. So number 1 would be the contractor shall not be allowed to close more than 1 consecutive bus stop on the same side of the street. Temporary bus stops and bus stop amenities shall be Americans with Disability Act ADA compliant at all times. The contractor shall notify RTC Transit of proposed bus stop closures and/or bus stop amenity disruptions via notify RTC Transit at rtcnv.com at least 7 calendar days prior to the start of work. Notification of bus stop closures involving removal of existing amenities shall be provided to RTC Transit at least 10 calendar days prior to the start of work. That would be note number 1. And then note number 2 would be the contractor shall submit a bus stop closure schedule to RTC Transit with the approved traffic control plan at least 7 calendar days prior to the start of work. The bus stop closure schedule shall identify the duration of proposed bus stop closures and temporary bus stop relocations and times of day that stops are expected to be impacted by the work. All bus stop closures, temporary bus stops, and temporary bus turnouts must be approved by RTC Transit staff prior to the start of work. Those are the 2 notes, Mr. Chair, and those have been greatly helpful when our transit people get notified due to the traffic control setups. So we would emphasize that we would like these to be conditions of approval on all traffic control plans, if possible. And that's all RTC has.
Okay, Eric Hawkins for the record. Thank you, Mr. Damiani. Are there any other comments?
Mr. Chair, Kaisadias, Donnie, Clark County, for the record. Hey, Joe, just a suggestion. I think those are excellent notes to put on plans for our developer projects that we have. We have, traffic notes. We can put that as part of it. Just a suggestion here. And also adding that in our special provisions for our capital projects, so it becomes a requirement when the contractor's bidding, he knows that he's expected to do that. Has that been given some thought to put it in the special provisions, standard provisions, sorry?
Mr. Chair, Joe Damiani, RTC. Yes, we have been requiring those comments on capital projects, as well as we have, during our development reviews, are making sure those are on the transit note, the traffic notes on the private development project. So we are covering it on all those bases, but we also wanted to make sure that, because a lot of times, even though they're on the notes and the contractors are bidding it, it's the traffic control companies that are the ones doing this, and we want to make sure that it's also included on their conditions of approval, so that when they do set up a work zone that's impacting a bus stop, they know to let transit know. But yes, we are trying to cover all bases.
Okay. Eric Hawkins, for the record, are there any other comments? Okay, hearing no additional comments, we can move on to the next item. Mr. Damiani.
Thank you, Chair Hawkins. Joe Damiani, RTC. And your last item on the agenda is item number 10, your final citizens participation.
Okay, Eric Hawkins, for the record, this is the second time set aside for public comment. Just a reminder that comments will be limited to the first 500 words, with the remaining words to be included in the written record. Do we have any comments?
Thank you, Chair Hawkins. Eileen Pastor, RTC, for the record. There are no public comments.
Okay, thank you. Eric Hawkins, for the record, if there are no additional comments, I'll close the item. And if there's nothing else, then this meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. Good discussion.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Live stream.